All right, so I want to officially welcome you to tonight's event. Welcome to tonight's panel discussion called From Junior to Mid-Level Strategies for Career Advancement in Tech. My name is Chris, and I'm a software engineer, and I'm one of the community organizers of Tech Tank, as you can see here. And I'm super excited to be moderating this event tonight and be able to chat with our lovely panelists, Jules, Danny, and Randall, who I'm going to bring up shortly. So I'm sure most of the new folks here tonight probably found us through the Tech Tank meetup page. And basically, we're an active group of developers, designers, PMs, and other tech enthusiasts that range from junior to early career professionals, all the way to seniors with over 10 plus years of experience. So we do host job-related workshops and sessions like these, as well as study groups and in-person meetups and social events located in Toronto. So if you're interested in joining, we do have a Slack group, and one of our admins is going to plug in the link right now and also at the end. And at the end of our panel discussion, you will have a chance to ask questions to the panelists through our chat or by unmuting your mic. And after that, we can also make some time to do, if we have any time, and depending on how many people we have, we'll see if we have any time for casual networking. And at this time, we're going to post a Google Sheet right on the chat where you can share your LinkedIn so everybody can connect with one another, which I believe that is already being shared. So I'm sure now you're dying to hear from the panelists. And so without further ado, let's bring them up. Hello, hello. Thank you so much. This is Randall, Danny, and Jules. Let's get just right into it. Let's start with, and the order doesn't matter. Everybody can just jump in, but tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe what your role is, how long you've been in the role, and how long you've been in the industry and stuff like that.
Sure, I can kick us off. I'm Jules Gmz. I'm a software engineer. I've worked in the past on products like Start Page. I've worked at Buffer. Right now I work at a place called Webflow, building their marketplace. My expertise is mostly in SaaS, so software as a service, and I've also got a lot of expertise in accessibility. I've been working in this stuff for about 6 years. Randall, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Randall Thomas. I've been working in software for about 2 years now. Grew up as a musician and transitioned into tech a couple years ago. I am a senior software developer at a startup and also have been doing some mentorship and coaching for my team for the past couple of months now.
Yeah, I'm Danny, joining from Toronto, working as a full stack developer at LifeAt. And I have around 3 years of experience, but I started as a hobbyist. So I have been programming more than that. I love hanging out with other developers in the community, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much to all three of you for being here. So yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of questions today, but let's kind of get into more of the technical and skill related aspects first. So what were, some of, and all three of you have differing ranges of experience, but what were some of the more critical skills or competencies that you had to develop to transition and get to that next level in your role?
I would say probably one of the biggest things is really learning how to collaborate. And with that comes real good communication skills, especially if you're going to be doing remote work or want to be doing that kind of stuff. You really need to have the communication skills and the right vernacular to really communicate with the team. So I think that, when you learn, you can program as well as you want, but if you can't communicate with the rest of the team, you don't really hit your goals as a company or as a team.
Yeah, I really agree with you. So communication is the crucial part when you want to step up as a developer. And I think big part of it is forming your opinion and delivering it to other people, like explaining what you're thinking, why you think something is good, something is bad, and like sharing with that with other people. I think that's very important when you're like transitioning from junior to the next level.
I think for me, so I'm a second career developer. I had a full other career in communications and marketing before I transitioned into software engineering. So for me, the communication part was actually like my strong point when I started. And it's like the thing that sort of made me stand out. So I know there's a lot of like second career folks in the audience, and that's something that I made sure to highlight when I was like looking for jobs or like just trying to like connect with people, was the fact that like, listen, my communications, I've had 6 years like working at companies, like I have like sort of these collaboration skills. So for me to change, like to grow from a junior to a senior, first of all, and it's two like conflicting ideas. The first is I had to improve my attention to detail. So I work in the front end and it's very detail oriented. You know, you have to make sure you get all the border radiuses, all the shadows, all the like very little things that designers really care about that often gets your work bumped back to you. So make sure you're developing that. And every time, the way that I did this was every time I got something bumped back to me, I made a note, like in a separate note for myself. It's like common things that I miss. I miss border radiuses, I miss shadows, I miss. And so every time I work on something, I have that list to like keep in track. Like now it's 6 years later, it's something that I can remember in the back of my head, but at the beginning it was very much physical. And then as I grew in my career, I also had to develop like a bigger picture view. So one thing that is really important when you're like going like rising in the ranks per se is when you're a junior, you're getting tickets that are usually fairly well scoped out for you and that have like everything broken down to you. As you grow in this career, you're doing the scoping. You're getting like the big, especially if you work in product like me, what you're getting is you're getting a full brief of like, this is the feature that we want to implement. And it's your responsibility to break it down into either phases of how you're going to implement this and then from the phases, break it down into smaller bits. So if you want to get into these kinds of levels, you need to have a bigger picture of like, where are you going? Because you don't want to build just a thing for today. You also want to build a thing for tomorrow. And you want to make sure that the system that you build today is resilient enough, scalable, that kind of thing for tomorrow. So you need also like a bigger picture view. So attention to detail and a bigger picture view.
Yeah, that's so important, and I love that you like broke it into two specific things and gave specific examples. So thank you so much. And yeah, 100% with a communication bit as well. But I think it's great how you you know, there's obviously like there you know, we know who our audience is, and a lot of us are second career folks, and I actually think all of us here are, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, that's a very interesting point. Let's get a little bit more into kind of specific, and this could be either, you know, something you did at your company that you were at, or, you know, even outside. I know Danny does a lot of community initiatives as well, but can you maybe discuss like a specific project or a task or something technical that you did that was kind of marked like a turning point in your confidence and ability as that kind of next level developer, like for you to stop identifying as a junior developer per se?
Yeah, I can start. So at my last company, I worked on an initiative where we migrated from vanilla JavaScript to TypeScript, and that was a big undertaking and had a lot of risk. And I was one driving it, so I was held accountable for my opinions and like my decision behind that initiative. And that was a big turning point for me because like that was the first time I introduced a risk to my company to make a gain and like make a better code base. And yeah, I had to deliver it, and that was a big turning point. It was scary.
I,
Yeah.
I hope it paid off.
Yes, it was much better afterwards.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so when I was working at my last company, I actually got that position like very imposter syndrome wise. Like it was like my dream company. I'd always wanted to work there. And when I saw that they were hiring, I knew that they didn't hire very often. So I just sent in my application. And then, like, weirdly enough, I did get hired, and I was the first person that they hired in a junior level, like, ever. So it was like really nerve-wracking, and like the first project that I was on was exactly what I was saying. Like, it was things that were like really broken down for me. It was very like manageable. And then I moved to a different project called that was analytics, and we worked a lot on like analytics dashboards, and the lead on that project had to be moved to a different project. So suddenly, like I was like a junior in charge of the front end, but it was a front end that I knew. It was a front end that I was comfortable with. So I was like okay leading that one. And then another thing happened, and it was that another person, who is my mentor now, actually, was going through a very tough personal circumstance, had to take a leave, but the team had to keep moving, and we were building a brand new product. And they asked me if I could lead it. And it was terrifying. It was like dealing right with the CTO. It was like dealing with like staff engineers, proposing ideas. I proposed the architecture for something that we launched later as like a product that people pay for. And so it was very nerve-wracking, but it's sort of like in those projects that I think you really notice your abilities to grow. And then the funny thing is like growing with that project later on, I noticed like the architecture that I picked was like good for us to start, but not good for a mature product. And so like it's also like I think part of like the developer journey is sort of like oscillating between that, between like I am a genius and I can do anything, and I am scum and I know nothing. So it's very normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for yeah, that feeling definitely that is a something you have to live with basically. Like pretty much become friends with failure, be good with it. Um, I would say for the turning point in my confidence as a developer was probably a little bit more when I was a junior. Um, I got tasked to put a feature together that integrated 2 or 3 different third-party APIs, and I was basically the only person on it. So they kind of needed me to get it done, and I was in that phase where it was a lot of imposter syndrome. Um, but it was interesting to have that fear, but then to also, when you start looking at the documentations and uh, start trying to like put a sandbox together or whatever it is to try and implement these other APIs and technologies that you don't know. um, it sounds like such a daunting task, but once you start getting into it, it's you know the more APIs, third-party APIs, and different things that you work with, the easier it gets to learn new ones. So I quickly became like the third-party API guy at my work, which I think um, also helped a good bit with visibility in the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing those stories. Like I'm trying to, like I identify as a junior developer. So like I know I am hosting this panel discussion, but I'm actually here to try to get as much tips out of all 3 of your experiences. So thank you. Let's talk, switch over to maybe talking a little bit more about, maybe some suggestions or kind of specific performance metrics that might be crucial for a junior developer to meet or exceed in order to kind of advance to the next level. And maybe you can also comment on how maybe as a junior, how do you or how do you, or how did you track and kind of showcase your performance to your manager or to your company to let them know that you are ready to go to the next level?
I would say that probably these lovely people here are probably a little bit more equipped to talk about that than I am, because the company I work for is just, it went so fast that like they needed to fill positions, and they kind of chose who was the best fit, and we just had to fill those roles and kind of make ourselves into those people. But one of the things that helped me a lot was keeping a daily journal of things that you worked on, things that you learned, and like the struggles that you've come up against, which helps a lot when you're trying to uh, think of the value that you give to the company, and you're trying to think of those conversations where you're wanting to move up an extra level, uh, and needing that data set to kind of present to management to kind of say like, hey, well, here's all these things that I've done, and I feel like I can take on a little bit more responsibility. So I think, yep, just a daily journal of those things, of what you've worked on, what you've learned, and your struggles. Uh, Especially your struggles, you learn more from your failures than you do from your success, because who's going to remember your success? Like, there's no like uh, catalyst when you just have success. Failure is a catalyst that you just remember. So it comes with the tech territory. You fail a lot, and you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, like daily journal. I think that's a really good idea. And what I like to do is every day, like I try to share the highlights of what I do, or like what the team achieved uh, together. And that gives you visibility of like your value in a team. Like someone mentioned brag doc in the comment section, and that's like totally in the same area. It boosts you up, but also like make other people see your value as well. Like share your brag doc to other people. Like don't keep it to yourself. Share it with other people. Share it to the community, and yeah, people like it. People like seeing good stuff in their chat, in their communication channel. And also, if you fail, like as Randall said, like you learn from it, and that's a highlight too. So share that, like, and your team grows together from the learnings you had during those failures and like difficulties.
My advice goes even like further back to when you're interviewing at places. I personally would not work anywhere that doesn't have a career framework. I know like we have this like indoctrination that like when we are looking for jobs, like we are like begging, like please, please give me a job. But I very much approach looking for jobs as like I am a consultant, these are my clients, these are the services that I offer, this is the level I offer the services at, and they are free to decide if that works for them. So at the same time, I'm also like evaluating them, like, is this a place I want to work at? And I don't want to work at somewhere that doesn't have a career framework, because that means that promotions are just given by like feelings, and like usually like when you shift big things, or like when you're part of a really big visible project, and as a minority, like these are not good places for me. If you work at a place that has a career framework, and you can ask this during your interviews, like, oh, can you show me the career framework? Get an eye on it, like make sure you see it, see what is expected at each level, because it also makes it much easier when you're in places that have a career framework to get those promotions, because you know what they are looking for at each level. And then so what I've done in the past working for places that have career frameworks is I basically like match up what it is that they're looking for on the framework. So if it says like a career or a level 3 engineer scopes a big feature and leads the project, Then you work with your manager before all of this happens. You work with your manager for your manager to find you that big project. And you let them know, hey, listen, I'm ready for something like this. And then they can also help you. Like if you work at places that have like their organization like organized, it like makes promotions a lot more straightforward and clearer. The brag docs are good. And you know, that's kind of, I don't know, I think that's my manager's job, but it doesn't hurt. I also like to, when you're working on the front end, it's much easier to show visible stuff. So take advantage of that if you're working on the front end, and like share demos for fun. Just share them with your team. Hey team, I wanted to share this like that I've been working on. It's cool. People like seeing it. You get feedback on your work right away before like anything happens. And it's also like good to link back to your promotion docs of like, I worked on this. This is the evidence. Because whether you like it or not, like me, I don't love it. You do have to prove it. I also recommend the learnings, like the failures is really good. And if you can take it a step further and write something about it, write a blog post or write like a note for your team, whatever communication your team uses, or write documentation of like, this is how this actually works, or something like that. Anything that's written that has your name on it is going to help like your visibility. And the biggest thing for me, like to remind myself and also that I tell juniors, is that your performance is not measured by being faster. I think a lot of people think that you are more senior if you can do things faster. No, you are more senior if you can take bigger scopes. So it's not about being faster, it's about doing more impactful work. And that takes time.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm hoping maybe somebody is taking notes on this and I can, take it off of them later. I'll watch it again. But yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, like I think like those are all things that I have not done yet. I don't have a brag doc. I've thought about my mistakes. I've been miserable over my mistakes, but I haven't actually tried to take that and like write something about it. But it gives me a lot of food for thought of things to do. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I want to maybe talk a little bit about, and I think both Randall and Jules mentioned something around imposter syndrome and how you view yourself and things like that. So as you progressed and as you saw your technical abilities and your just overall skills evolve as you moved and leveled up as a developer, how did your perception of those abilities change, or have they? Do you still suffer from imposter syndrome, or does that go away?
yeah, I want to talk about this because like when Randall brought this up, like I related so hard. And like we go through this feeling every day. Like maybe some people don't, but there's a feeling that what you do right now isn't the best thing, like best decision you can make. And I was actually talking with another senior developer in the community, and he told me that it's okay to have that feeling, uncomfortable feeling, but make sure you communicate with the team about what you're thinking and like discuss what could be the alternatives, or like what they think about the options. And then after all that, when you make a decision, that's the best you can do, and you don't need to feel bad about it. But make sure you come back to it, evaluate it, and learn if that was a good decision, bad decision. If it was bad, learn why it was bad, and so on.
Yeah, I would add that. Yeah, I think unless you've done this for a decade, pretty much everybody feels the imposter syndrome at least weekly. And that's the nature of tech. Like there's new tech out every minute, every second. You learn a new framework or a new language, and as soon as you've learned it, something's changed about it, or a new framework or language comes along. So it's kind of, you have to kind of get comfortable with living in that space of not really exactly knowing what it is that, like, I mean, you need to know what you're doing, but you know, when it comes to new tech, it's new. There's no way of knowing exactly what you're doing at that point. So just kind of living in that space and allowing yourself to not feel bad about it because it's happening to absolutely everybody. And also, like, what we're doing, the nature of our work is, it's really hard. It's complicated. It takes a lot of brain power, and um, you just always have to have a pretty decent level of grace for yourself, and to just stop beating up on yourself and um, basically thinking that you have to be perfect in what you're doing. As you move up in levels, you notice that not the seniors aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's just how you approach problems kind of changes as you move up levels and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, just embracing the not the imposter syndrome, but just that feeling of kind of being a little bit lost and just finding your way anyways. That's the place that, you know, if you get comfortable there, then you'll be fine.
It's true, you will be fine. We're not saving lives here, we're just making some software. My perception of my abilities has evolved. Like, I am not as scared of things. Like, I used to be scared of like breaking things. Now I'm like, oh, everything can be reverted, everything can be solved. Like, that has changed. What has stayed the same, and like the reason why I love programming, and like this gets a little corny, but I think programming has really taught me to be humble. You know, like, before I got into this, I was very like driven by my ego. I remember finishing university and being like, why aren't people hiring me for these jobs? I finished from like one of the best schools in Canada. I finished cum laude, or whatever it is. I think just cum laude. I don't know what it is. That's how good it was. But I think like the thing that has stayed the same is like, it's really important to stay humble. Like, it's really important that you keep in mind, like, you are not going to know everything. Imposter syndrome is partly on you, but if you feel it very, very often, and if it's like crippling, it's not you, it's the environment that you're in, and you need to change that. And you have the power to change that. As workers, we always have the power to change jobs. And if your job is that bad that you feel crippling anxiety to ask questions, to make mistakes, that's not on you, that's on them, and you need to find a new job. um, and I think like what is different from like junior Jules to like whatever I am now is I've really just filled myself with curiosity. When something doesn't work, instead of banging your head about like this is wrong, I'm a failure, it's like, why doesn't this work? How does this work? You know, like, really tap into. My mentor and I always joke about this, because when I was a junior, I'd always be really frustrated and very tense, and she'd always be like, curiosity. And now that is what I spread as well.
Yeah, that's lovely. I mean, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how when I'm like programming and something's like, I talk to myself a lot. I talk out loud, and sometimes I'm at work and I'm like swearing by myself at my desk. And today someone like heard me because it was a bit loud. But yeah, that definitely happened to me today. But I will, next time that happens, I will turn that into a question and curiosity. So I love it. um, cool. Okay. So, Jules, you mentioned, actually, you mentioned having a mentor. I don't know if that's still kind of a thing. And, you know, Randall and Danny, feel free to comment on this as well. But how did the kind of feedback or constructive criticism, kitty, from kind of your mentors or your peers or supervisors kind of help shape your path to where you are now. So yeah, if we can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, I love my mentors. I have had many. The first one was when I was learning to program. My best friend was a programmer, and so he would like walk me through problems, and I basically learned to program doing the tech interview phases for companies. That's how arrogant I was, you guys. Like, really. I was like, took like an HTML, CSS course, and I was like, put me up for jobs. And I didn't get any of them, but I got the tech interviews, and my mentor and I would look them over, and he would like teach me, like, oh, this is how you do them, this is how you pass parameters, or things like that. I had another mentor that was like a really interesting situation because our promotions were tied. So if you can swing this at your work, this is a really cool setup. What we did was Federico was just on the cusp of like becoming a senior engineer, and I was a junior just on the cusp of becoming mid-level. And so what we did is like between our manager, we tied our promotions together where if Fed could help me get my promotion from junior to mid, he would get his promotion from mid to senior. And so that really helped us out because like, yeah, it was like mutually beneficial to help each other out. And that one was an interesting one. And if you can swing that at your companies, like try and ask for it, like try and even just like swing it between yourselves if you see someone who's like, you know, can help you out that way. The way that we did it was basically like Fed like sponsored me for like, oh, I think Jules can do this. I think Jules can do this. And like work that he'd get that he knew that I could do, he'd pass it on to me. And work that he'd get that he knew that I could do with his help, he would pass it on to me. And so like that was like a really amazing learning experience, I think, for both of us. And my mentor, my favorite mentor, because I do have favorites, is actually just my friend. We were working at the same company, but we weren't working together. And our mentorship just really came like really natural. Her name is Sol. And she's just the best. Like, I think the best mentors are the ones where you are like actually friends because there is no barrier for me to ask Sol like embarrassing questions. Like, I'll ask her like really dumb things about like, I don't understand why this works. Like, when we were working in the same code bases, it was really easy to be like, I'm working on this. Like, can we look at this together? Sol like famously hates video calls. So it was also like, a really good training for like asking things asynchronously and like really coming to her with like complete questions. But more than anything, like it's good to have like technical mentors, but it's really amazing to have like sort of like engineering culture like mentors. And like everything that I have learned for like how to be a good engineer has been from Sol and me just like talking. So I know lots of people approach mentorship as like how can we benefit, like what comes out of this, but in my experience the best mentors are people who are actually just your friends who have like a little bit more experience than you.
Yeah, like I agree with the mentorship, and like it shouldn't be like what can I get out of this mentor, like what can I benefit like from this person. I think the best approach is approach the person with curiosity, like how does people do things, and like what would you do if you were in my like position, and like I'm kind of curious what you would do as a like more experienced person, and you'll learn a ton like if when you hear that from other people. And it doesn't really need to be a senior or like a person step up. Like it can be the same level or even be like less experienced than you, and just hear them what they think about the problem and how they would approach it. And yeah, I even do it outside of work in the community, and that really helps me think about things during the day and solving problems.
yeah, I think to Jules's point, it seems like having a mentor that's a little bit closer of a friend has definitely been one of the mentors in my life that has like really exponentially like elevated my skills and everything that I know, because we can sit there and just talk things over. And like uh like Jules said, if what we do is so hard, we need to have kind of like a safe space to explore ideas and ask questions and um feel like you're not going to be perceived as stupid if you ask questions, because like um that's how are you going to learn if you if you're not asking questions. uh but also, like, yeah, if you're hesitant to ask questions, then that that could be a culture type thing. It might not be the right kind of job. Your company needs to cultivate that kind of environment where you feel comfortable asking questions, or else it's like the team can't grow and everybody will be stagnant and everybody's in silos, and that's not how an optimal team works. And something else that Jules brought up that's really important: uh, formulating your questions. Seniors and higher ups are, they're in meetings and they're doing all sorts of other things rather than coding. um, and if you come to them with a question that's like, hey, this thing doesn't work when I'm not sure what, well, you don't have like the vernacular, and you can't, if you don't really tell exactly what you're asking, it can get um, kind of exasperating, because I think probably every team has one of those people where it's like, hey, I can't get the thing to work. You're like, well, what thing in what file and what repository? What like what are you talking about? Um, uh, but yeah, so getting back to the mentorship thing, I think that is, it's really important to find somebody within the organization to kind of lock together. And I think that helps me progress a lot in my company. Was I found somebody who, we became really good friends and started mentoring each other. We're both good at different things and understand things in different ways, and we're really comfortable talking to each other. Um, so if you can like immediately find a mentor within your organization that you kind of resonate with, and it'll elevate your skills and also just your whole experience of the whole company, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good points. And also, just Jules just shared a resource for how to ask good questions in the chat, and I've opened it, and I'm gonna. So yeah, I'd recommend other people look into it as well. Sorry, Danny, did you have something to add?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I
My
want to
bad.
add something. I think this is why it's really important to have good company culture and the communication skills, because not only it boosts your like skill set, it also makes a friendly environment where you can make mistakes, and like you feel imposter syndrome and you're gonna make mistake. But if you're communicating well and like asking questions, people will be forgiving when you do make a mistake and like make a like less than optimal decisions, because everyone knows how you thought through this, and they are more willing to forgive if you understand what you did, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, it's never a bad idea to have a list of things that you tried before you ask a question.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's always a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm just being mindful of time because I have a feeling that we're gonna get some great questions. So I want to make sure that we do finish up, so that we have a good chunk of time for Q&A. So maybe let's move on to, what advice would you give to junior developers, I know you've already provided lots and lots of advice, but for those who are maybe facing roadblocks in getting that promotion or to advance their career. So, and like for folks that maybe feel a little bit stuck or not sure how to advocate for themselves during like promotion discussions or performance reviews and whatnot.
I would say I got kind of lucky and found my mentor, and he kind of had my back throughout all those types of processes, and because he understood my skills and he like understood how much work I was putting into things and how much effort I was actually putting into everything that we were doing. So it was really beneficial for me to have somebody in my corner, kind of speaking my name in different areas, because I'm so introverted that I'm not I'm horrible at self advocating. Which is not to say rely on somebody else to advocate for yourself. Definitely advocate for yourself. Um, but again, like going back to the mentorship thing, if you can find a good mentor, that'll be the person that'll be in management's ear, kind of being like, hey, this person has actually been putting in a lot of effort and has been growing a lot. I think they're ready for the next level.
Yeah, I want to tie back to what Jules mentioned earlier about the speed and scope. So a lot of people think that speed is what you need to get to the next level, but it's actually the scope. Like how many people are you affecting with your work? Like what kind of like how much of a business are you impacting with your work? That's more important than like how many commits you make in a day. So I know some companies measure KPIs based on speed, or some people call it effectiveness, but don't like get too tied into that. And make sure you make space for yourself to work on larger scope things. For example, so if you're like getting behind in schedule, like you need to make a PR, like 5 PR in a week, and you're behind, like you wouldn't have time to help other developers solving their problems, right? It's really hard thing to do, like when you're behind. So sometimes it is needed to communicate with your manager. You're getting too many tasks, and that's actually prohibiting you to make a larger impact. And I think that's something junior developers need to think about when they're willing to go to the next level.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. It's always like super helpful to have someone like there's like a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Mentorship is like when people like will teach you and like work with you, but sponsorship is really important too, which is when people will bring you up in meetings, talk about how great you are, suggest you for projects. So I definitely agree with Randall on that one. Other things like I think is like be visible, but for the right things. I think in today's world, take it from me, don't get distracted by like diversity and inclusion and like being an advocate for diversity and inclusion. Like it's definitely very important, but make sure it's not your entire brand. I made it my brand and it was very difficult to get out of it. So focus on being visible for more tech things. So process improvements, answering questions, being just generally helpful to people, are like things to be really good to be visible about. The other thing is like, I know this one is also kind of controversial. I feel like the DEI stuff might be controversial, but you can talk to me in private and I'll tell you my story. It was interesting. But the next controversial thing is like, I don't really focus on titles. And I know that titles are important, especially for like folks who are minorities. Like, I call myself an engineer. I don't have an engineering degree, but you get paid more as an engineer than if you market yourself as a developer. So titles do matter, but titles are also like a marketing thing. So I recommend as a junior, you care more about the work that you're doing, because there are people who are really focused on like getting to senior. Getting to senior doesn't matter if you can't scope a big feature, if you don't know what working with product and design is like. Care more about the things that you do. And then the titles, you can change your resume. Your resume is a marketing document, it's not a legal document. And also companies, when you interview with them, will notice if you are a senior or not. There's like so many people that are like staff engineers and they've like been engineering like 6 months. And that just means that the company doesn't have a better engineer. And that's why they're a staff engineer. And I think like another really important thing as a junior is just like be nice to work with. Like we spend 35 to 40 hours a week working with these people. Be nice to them, you know? Like I think that really gets you like in people's good books if that's what you care about, or at least just like a pleasant work environment, which is the thing that I care about. Just be nice to everyone, to customer service, to marketing, to product, to engineering. You have to be nice to everyone who's below you, to everyone who's above you. Just be a nice person to work with and focus on like being a nice person to work with. Continue learning, make sure that you're getting like meaty, substantial projects that you can like learn from and put that in a resume later. And then, you know, promotions and titles will generally come after that. To be honest, in this day and age, you're really like, if you really want to get more money or you want to get a better title, you're probably going to have to switch companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Danny.
I gotta agree. Like being the nicest person in the company is the best visibility you'll get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have
I've
to say.
actually,
Yeah.
I've seen people be passed up for promotions because they're not nice to work with. The people that tend to work up the ranks the fastest tend to be the more pleasant to work with. Like people want to be around you, and people want to like give you more responsibility because they want to be around you more. So I think that's really important to what is there's a book called The Social Animal that kind of explains all of the science behind how you can have all the skills you want, but if you don't have the social skills to work with people, your career will kind of stagnate.
Yeah. Thank you so much to all three of you for the amazing advice and insight tonight. We only have 10 minutes left, so if you don't mind, I'm going to move it over to the Q&A section, which I'm very excited about. We have a lot of people here tonight. Don't be shy. This is the time to get your questions answered. Wow. Okay, that was fast. Okay. It's a bit long. I was going to read it out loud, but if anybody wants to answer that. Alternatively, for those who want to, you can ask questions over the chat. You can also use the raise hand feature to ask questions, and you can ask a particular person a question or just like throw it out to the panel as well. I'm not really sure.
Can we answer Phil's question?
Yeah, I think the first question, I'm not entirely sure how that is framed. But yeah, let's, how do you deal with burnout and always having to learn new technologies? For example, working on side projects after full days of work. Sure, yeah, let's start with that.
Personally, I have never done any side projects. Like after I got my first jobs, like I like joked about this at work once. I was like, I dream of doing side projects and then I dream of hanging out with my friends after work, and that's what I do instead. I think if you realistically look at most companies don't use like the cutting edge technologies, so you don't really have to learn absolutely everything that comes out. I focus, especially as a front-end dev, on learning JavaScript really well. And then since then, like I've always worked with React, and like yeah, sure, React got like this like upgrade a few years ago, and we had to learn some new methods, but read the docs. Randall, I think you're a fan of docs. I'm a fan of docs. I love docs. I don't need courses. I can just read the docs. And so yeah, I don't think that you need to have burnout. And then anytime at work that a new technology has come up, I just tell my manager like I need time to read the docs. And usually most companies, if you're using something like super new, they will give you that time. And yeah.
Yeah. And also, I believe that you need to allow yourself to not work on those things. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to do that. That will burn you out so quick. And like you have to have that permission to not work on things. And if you don't feel like working on it, then actually don't work on it because that's gonna burn you out. But like I do work on things on weekends and stuff, like, but there are times I don't feel like doing it. So on those weeks, I just skip those. Simple as that.
Oh, sorry. We have a few more questions in the chat. How do you deal with being between junior and mid-level during a job search?
I don't ever put my levels on my marketing docs. Like, remember, a resume is a marketing document after all. You are selling your service to a potential new client, and you get to put whatever title within reason that you want because you are the marketer of your brand. And I generally don't like to put titles because of what we talked before. Like a senior at one company is not a senior at a different company. A staff at one company is not going to be a staff in another. And so it's not up to you to either oversell yourself giving yourself a senior title or undersell yourself giving yourself a junior title. You're a software engineer, and the company is the one that has the expertise and the knowledge to say what level you fall in their framework. So that's my advice.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. For anyone can feel free to pick it up. How do you keep up with the latest trends and technologies?
I don't. Whenever I get paid to.
Yeah, generally you're working, 40 hours a week, at least sometimes. And yeah, like Jules says, a lot of the tech that you're working on is not going to be new tech. The people that need to keep up with new tech are like bloggers and stuff like that. Like you basically you learn what you need to learn and you implement it, and that's your job, is you implement things. You don't have to know everything, you just have to be able to implement it.
Love it. Were you gonna say something, Danny? Sorry.
Oh,
No?
no.
Okay. Next question. Is the market for jobs in tech particularly bad right now? I've only started applying since earlier in the summer, wondering if what I'm seeing as far as available opportunities is representative of better times, especially when it comes to junior or intermediate roles, which practically don't exist right now from what I can see. Do any of you have insight on this right now? Or?
I'd say that, yeah, I think the market is really hard. It started, falling about 2-3 years ago, maybe. All the concerns about the economy and all of the stock market things all get tied into companies. Public companies have stock, so what started happening was companies started trying to cut corners and cut some of their costs before the big thing that they all said was basically thought were going to happen. So they were all trying to get ready for this recession, basically. And it seems like those fears are kind of dying out now, So it seems like the market is getting a little bit better now than it was like last year. But yeah, it's still like, from what I hear, it's still pretty gruesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
No.
I was gonna say, it is, but it's also more about like networking and like reaching out to people, talking to the people that you know. Like I feel like when times get hard or when there's like, this is all supply and demand, and there's a lot of supply of especially junior engineers after the pandemic gave people time to study coding, and so lots of juniors are like in the market right now. So you have to really differentiate yourself. But the way that you can like put yourself forward is like talk to people directly on LinkedIn, talk to the hiring manager, talk to people that work at those companies. And in general, I really like the advice. Like if you're looking for a job, I like the advice of someone named Liz Ryan. If you look her up, her process is called the human workplace. They are just amazing. They're super, super forward thinking. And that method has gotten me all of my interviews, even at places where I'm like, what? So definitely check her out.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think we're mostly running out of time. Maybe let's just do one final question really quickly. So I think Aaron says, how do I find a mentor? I've worked a few jobs and I haven't been able to find one at any workplaces so far. So I don't know. How do we find mentors?
Reach out to the communities, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah, Tech Tank has we have a mentorship program going on at Tech Tank. If you're curious about it, connect with one of us. Sammy is in the chat right now, and he can give you a little bit more information about that. Yeah, and I think, is there any more questions? Or there's a lot of great comments thanking everybody for being here. It is 8:59, so I am going to wrap up. Thank you. Sorry if we didn't get to all the questions and comments, but hopefully we can continue the conversation from here. Hopefully you were able to connect with some of the people that showed up today. So thank you everyone so much for coming out tonight. Thank you especially to the three wonderful panelists, Jules, Danny, and Randall. So much wisdom, so much insight, so much sharing that was extremely helpful. So thank you so much for your time. We're going to plug in the Tech Tank invite link in the LinkedIn sheet again, which Sammy has done. And please follow us to receive alerts for future events like this. We have in-person events in Toronto and virtual events like this so that we can reach other people around the world. So yeah, you can feel free to follow us on Meetup, LinkedIn, and website. Thank you so much for the new folks that came out today. We're getting lots of thank yous in the chat. So yeah, I think we'll stop the recording at this point.